One doesn't have to be a military expert to see that this is something the world hasn't seen before. There was speculation yesterday that the Russians may be preparing a new type of missile with a much higher yield. Moves by US diplomats in Kyiv to close the embassy, among other things, show that they may have known about the threat in advance. Today, a new Russian missile hit. All the characteristics, speed, altitude, prove that it was an intercontinental ballistic missile. An investigation is underway. It is clear that Putin is using Ukraine as a testing ground. As it turns out, the damage in Dnipro, according to initial reports, is relatively minor, or at least not what one would expect from the impact of this type of missile. This is a weapon designed for one thing and one thing only: the mass destruction of the enemy with nuclear warheads. No one in the world has ever thought of adapting this type of weapon for conventional warfare, that is, for destroying ground targets with conventional warheads. It is likely that the Kremlin informed both Washington and Beijing through diplomatic channels of the planned attack with such a missile. The launch and trajectory were certainly seen by all military radars and satellites. However, the point was not the attack itself, but its implications. What we have here is a clear strategic signal that the Russians are prepared to use nuclear weapons. This is the first bombardment of a neighboring country with an intercontinental ballistic missile. The Kremlin is escalating for obvious reasons. Negotiations on a possible end to the war are likely soon. The whole sequence of events in recent days clearly shows that Moscow is trying to make plays in its geopolitical chess game. North Korea's entry into the war, Russia's change in nuclear doctrine, threats to anti-missile installations in Poland and Romania, and finally, the latest incident in the Baltic Sea. According to unofficial information from Western media, the captain of the Chinese ship that allegedly damaged underwater transmission cables is a Russian. After all, it is no secret that the Danish Navy has been tracking the ships, so it is clear that the relevant Danish authorities are involved in this matter. In addition, the Kremlin is returning to its tactic of attacking critical infrastructure in Ukraine. Massive power outages, heating, and water shortages are a certainty. I am worried about the power outages. I won't be able to cook food because I have an electric stove at home. But otherwise, we are prepared. We have a camping stove, a generator, power banks. Putin has one goal: to weaken Ukrainian morale as much as possible, to scare people into negotiating on his terms at all costs. At the moment, we see what he is doing, targeting civilian targets, apartment blocks. It's all about creating fatigue. It's all about creating discontent among the citizens of Ukraine, and probably some of the soldiers as well. Paradoxically, however, the more brutal Putin's tactics are, the more Ukrainians want to continue the fight, because it is clear that agreeing to make concessions to the Kremlin would mean Ukraine falling back into the suffocating gray bog of the Russian sphere of influence, a fate no one looks forward to.